We're joined by one of my absolute faves, Carrington Harrison of The Drive in Kansas City. You can check him out 2 to 6 p.m. on 610 Sports Radio 96.5 The Fan. Carrington, what's going on, brother? How are you, man?
Doing pretty good, man. Happy to be on with you today, man. Happy to get people ready for Monday Night Football.
I'm about to say, we're not ready for Monday Night Football here in the nation's capital. Based on the way Washington has performed over the past couple of weeks. We'll get to the burgundy and gold in a second. Carrington, to the best of your ability, what has happened over the past 2 weeks to where it feels like now all of a sudden Kansas City not only back on track, but looking like the clear-cut frontrunner in a loaded AFC?
I mean, I would say it's probably three things. I would say, number one, their offensive line has just been really, really good. This is one of the more cohesive units that the Chiefs have had when it comes to their offensive line in a while, so that's been a major plus. The Chiefs got back Rashee Rice. You could argue that he's their best and most talented offensive skill position player. This is a guy who almost had 1,000 yards his first season. He looks like he was going to be en route to 1,000 yards last year before the injury, had the suspension this season, but he's back. He scored 2 touchdowns last week, and also having Xavier Worthy. Yeah. I think people overreacted to the Chiefs early on in the season. They lost to the Chargers. They lost to the Eagles, 2 potential playoff teams. I think people were just kind of quick to kind of move on from Kansas City. But now that they've gotten healthier, now that they've found some cohesiveness to their offensive line, we're talking about a team right now that the only team in the AFC that scored more points than them are the Indianapolis Colts, and a defense that you know is going to be top tier. I think this is as well as Kansas City has played probably in 4 years. We were talking about this on my radio show. Wow. I actually think that the team in 2021 that lost to the Tampa Bay Bucks, I actually think that was the best Chiefs team they've had during this run with Mahomes. This team kind of has a lot of those same tendencies. They really knock people out with their offense, and that just wasn't the case last year for a team that was 16th in points scored.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Just from watching them from afar on a week-in, week-out basis, definitely feels like things are solidified up front. I know there's a big mystery going on right now with what is going on with the rookie left tackle, Simmons. What can you tell us about that situation, and do you expect him to be back anytime soon for KC?
I mean, there's been a lot of speculation about it. I don't know if anybody has anything concrete. The Chiefs have said that it's a personal matter. I think most people can respect, a person dealing with a personal issue. Honestly, at least when it comes to the Chiefs from an on-the-field perspective, it hasn't really changed anything. The Chiefs went out in free agency and they got Jalen Moore. So he was Trent Williams' backup last year. They brought him in to be the left tackle. They then saw an opportunity to go get Josh Simmons. They pick him up. So they had 2 left tackles. Now that Simmons is gone, and there is an uncertainty of when he's going to come back. So I said this on my radio show. So yesterday, Thursday, was, the Chiefs' first practice back. Tuesday you're off, Wednesday, Monday Night Football. Thursday was their first practice. I said that if he's not back by Thursday, if I was the coach, he's not playing for us until after the bye week. So the Chiefs have this game against the Commanders. They turn right around and go on the road and play Buffalo in a game that obviously has major implications for the 1 seed, all of those kind of things. I don't know if you can play a guy who hasn't been around the team in the last 3 weeks, hasn't practiced, you don't know his conditioning, his mental, whatever it could possibly be. So I think we're talking about maybe 2-3 weeks before we can even entertain the possibility of what can happen with Josh Simmons.
Talk to me about this Kansas City run game, Carrington. I know Isaiah Pacheco has been used. I know Kareem Hunt's been used. I know the rookie Brashad Smith has been used. How do you expect them to deploy those guys Monday night coming up against Washington?
That's a good question. I mean, one thing that I've kind of been banging the drum since the offseason.
I love Brashad Smith, by the way. I wanted him here in D.C., just electric out of the backfield.
Yeah, he's been really good. The Chiefs, they kind of go for a type. They had Jerick McKinnon, they had C.J. Spiller, they had Samaje Perine. I think Brashad Smith kind of fits that role. If you add up the 3 running backs, so Kareem Hunt, Isaiah Pacheco, Kareem Hunt's actually a little bit banged up right now. He didn't practice yesterday. We'll see if he practices on Friday. And then you add Brashad Smith. All of their running backs are averaging 3.8 yards per carry. I don't think that's enough. I think you're going to need to run the football effectively. It just hasn't mattered, at least in these last 3 games, with the passing attack the way that it is. Mahomes is back to being the favorite for the MVP. The Chiefs' offense is back. It's been electric. So the run game conversation has kind of died down a little bit in Kansas City. But I've been kind of one of the few people, hey, you got to run the football effectively. Football is a line of scrimmage game. You got to be able to run the ball. But it just hasn't mattered for the last 3 weeks for Kansas City.
Flipping over to the defensive side of the football, feels like year in and year out, since Steve Spagnuolo has gotten there, this is perennially a top 10 group. They get after the passer. They're really young and fast in the secondary. They can play man. They can play zone. What to you has been the most impressive thing about this Chiefs defense in 2025?
That's a great question. I don't know if anything I think specifically really jumps out to me about the Chiefs, but I think it's a lot of what you just said. They're just solid across the board. They got a good defensive line. They got a good linebacker group. They got a lot of young and talented corners. They got a secondary that can take the football away. So I don't know if there's like one thing like they don't really have that guy the way that, a Myles Garrett or a Micah Parsons that you got to circle and you're like, oh, I'm worried about him. That's not really what Chris Jones has been for the last, 2.5 years or so. Not that caliber of player, but certainly a very good player in the middle. And they're just the defense that just makes it work across the board, and they're doing it again this year.
Joined right now by our pal Carrington Harrison. You can give him a follow on the old X app at c.harrison. Also, make sure you check him out on 96.5 The Fan in KC, weekdays 2 to 6. Carrington, when you were talking about this Commanders game on your show and getting geared up for this group, knowing that Jayden Daniels is not going to play, is there any – and I know this is probably wishful thinking for us down here – is there any doubt in your mind or any thought in your mind, rather, that they would overlook this Washington Commanders team heading into Monday night?
I mean, I think it's difficult to kind of quantify, overlook. I mean, I will tell you this. There's not a lot of buzz for this game.
Yeah.
And some of that I think might be the fact that the Chiefs, they just play in these nationally televised games
it's nothing, man.
often. You know what I mean? Like, this team had Sunday Night Football a couple of weeks ago. They're always on the Nance and Romo, 325 Tom Brady's in town game. So, like, Monday Night Football against the Commanders, especially when in the same week you go on the road and play Buffalo, it kind of changes the conversation. Honestly, a lot of the talk this week regarding the Commanders has been about Marcus Mariota and the last time that he was in town. If you remember, that was back in 2017. He was the quarterback for the Tennessee Titans, and they beat the Chiefs. That was actually the last year that the Chiefs didn't at least make it to the AFC Championship game. So it's been a lot more conversation about that than I would say about individually this Commanders game. That's obviously going to pick up on game day on Monday, but there hasn't been a whole lot of buzz for this one.
For our fans here locally, you get to cover what may go down as the greatest quarterback of all time, talking about Patrick Mahomes. They've had just a litany of success ever since he's taken over, but there have been some rough patches, Carrington, and I think that is how I would describe the sophomore season for one Jayden Daniels. He's been in and out of the lineup, and even when he has been in the lineup, he just, to me, hasn't tapped into that 2024 Offensive Rookie of the Year as much as I'd like to. For our fans here in D.C., how do you guys deal with off Mahomes outing, and what is the conversation like usually off of a sloppier Mahomes performance?
I've been quoting this season. I watched that Cowboys documentary on Netflix.
The goods.
And I remember Michael Irvin in there said that the road to a championship is rarely smooth. It's bumpy. I would say with Kansas City, what makes Mahomes very, very unique as a superstar is they haven't really had many highs. I mean, they haven't had many lows. They've had obviously a lot of highs. But you got to think, Mahomes' first season as a starter, they go to the AFC Championship game. He goes toe-to-toe with Tom Brady. They then won a championship in his second year as a starter, and that's basically been the case throughout. So, most superstars, you kind of go through that ebb and flow. Michael had to lose to the Pistons. The famous Steve Young, where they're pulling the monkey off of his back. Michael, there's all of these examples. Kevin Durant, there's so many of these examples. Mahomes is one of the few superstars that he never really had to go through it. You saw pretty early on that he was special, and, he didn't have that heartbreaking playoff loss where we question if he could win in the postseason or not. He's just always won at a really high level.
Yeah, spoiled is what you are, my friend, is what 100%. I would say, bro. It is it's awesome to watch from afar. I like Patrick Mahomes, the person, man. I think he's a stand-up individual, works his tail off, seems like the ultimate leader. I want to go back to this Kansas City defense here for a second.
Actually, really quick, if I can cut you off real quick and just make this point about Patrick Mahomes, and this is the thing that we kind of run into in Kansas City is, the Chiefs have the perfect quarterback, right? So, I think whenever we're having these conversations, at least in Kansas City, and you probably hear this too, is no other quarterback can measure up because every other quarterback, for the most part, has some warts. Like, Josh Allen is incredible. I think he's the second best quarterback in the league. Josh Allen's never been to the Super Bowl, never beaten Patrick Mahomes in the postseason. Lamar Jackson is one of the best regular season quarterbacks we've ever seen, but we've seen his struggles in the postseason.
Right.
We see the criticism toward Jalen Hurts. Like, I think Mahomes' perfection, and I put that in quotes, it has just made it harder for everybody else because everybody else has a very human resume where Mahomes, sure, they've gotten blown out in Super Bowls, but, you know, when you're just turning 30 and you've already been to five and won 3 of them and got 2 MVPs, and none of your other contemporaries have a Super Bowl other than Jalen Hurts, it just changes the conversation and it just swings it so much in your favor. So where you look at every other good quarterback, Chiefs fans kind of look down or thumb their nose at everybody else because nobody's done anything close to what Patrick has done.
He's in a class of his own. 2 quick scheme questions on the way out, Carrington. We appreciate you making some time. Knowing what Washington is dealing with offensively, no Jaden Daniels, the potential return of McLaurin and Deebo Samuel, do you expect this to be one of those performances where, or one of those game plans, rather, where Spags is trying to heat Marcus Mariota up? Or do you think this is one of those things where they want to sit back and not give up the explosive?
Yeah, I mean, Spags is always going to dial up the pressure. He's always going to bring the heat. So I think that's a given, at least when it comes to this. One thing I at least do want to point out in this conversation with you is, like, this season has shown you can't overlook or disrespect anybody in the league.
Right.
I think there's like 4 or 5 really good teams in the league, and you would probably put Kansas City in that conversation, even though they're 4-3. And technically, like today, if the playoffs started, the Chiefs wouldn't be in the playoffs. But I think they're the best team in the AFC. So it's just so weird. But I would say, like, once you get out of the top 3 or 4 teams, whoever you think those teams are, man, teams 5 through 21 are just so interchangeable right now in the league. Like, you might not like the Chargers. I like the Chargers. I might like the Broncos. You might not like the Broncos, the Commanders, the Vikings, like all of these teams. So, like, you can't go into any of these games thinking, oh, we got this one. It's easy. Yeah, maybe against the Jets or the Saints. But again, yeah, you know what I mean? But against everybody else, like, you got to be on your P's and Q's. You got to keep your eyes open because almost anybody in this league can get you right now. Think about the Giants. The Giants lost to the Saints. And then 4 days later, beat the Eagles.
Which is crazy.
The Giants gave the Broncos everything they could handle. It's like the league is weird right now.
There's a lot of teams in that upper middle class is what I would call it, Carrington. I'll let you go on this, my friend. Offensively, how do you expect Kansas City to try and attack a Washington defense that's given up some of the most explosives in the NFL?
I don't know how you really defend Kansas City right now. I don't know what you try to take away. Like, if you're talking about making them one-dimensional, okay. I mean,
good luck.
Rice can hit you for 100. Worthy can hit you for 100. Kelsey can hit you for 100. Tyquan Thornton's had a game where he had 90 yards receiving. Juju might have 50 yards. Like, this is the first time in a while where the Chiefs just got guys. They got a lot of different options. I feel like there was a stretch there for about 2 years. It was kind of, well, if you could take Kelsey away, there's nobody else that can beat you. Right now, they can beat you over the top. They can beat you intermediate. They can just beat you with Mahomes on 3rd and 12, just runs for a first down. Like, there's a lot of different ways this offense can attack people. At this point, I think you've got to anticipate that Kansas City is going to score at least 27 points. So the question is, can the Commanders either force a couple of turnovers or can they win this game 31-27?
Real quick on the way out, your prediction for this one.
I got to take Kansas City in this one. I mean, right now we're at the point where I would take Kansas City against any team in the National Football League. That wasn't the case earlier in the year. Like, I picked the Eagles to win that game. Yeah. You know, like, there's been times I picked against them. I thought the Lions were going to be a lot more competitive than they were. But with the way Kansas City is competing on offense and defense and at home, it's just hard for me to pick against them in this game, especially when I know the Chiefs played last week. I mean, Chris Jones, for example, he played in 23 snaps last week. So the Chiefs are coming into this game kind of rested after last week's blowout against the Raiders.
But I say, don't tell me that, Carrington. It seems like it has the potential to get ugly on Monday. Hopefully Washington is able to compete. Brother, I appreciate you making some time for us, man. Wish we had longer. Huge fan of yours, as you know, man. Keep killing it and have a good show today, my brother.
Absolutely, man. I'm pulling for you guys, man. I'll catch you down the road.